Why don't we get going?
Sounds good.
Rob Fraser, good morning. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Thanks. Appreciate you taking the time to have a chat.
Super excited to be here. It's nice and bright and early in the morning.
Yep.
Victoria, weather is kind of turned for the worse lately, and I don't know, how cold is it where you are in Calgary?
Well, relatively speaking, not bad for Calgary. It's around zero at the moment, but
Okay.
for you,
Yeah.
maybe that's not good.
Yeah, but we've been like teetering around there. Like it's been unseasonably cold, I feel like. Maybe a little less rainy, which is good, but just like kind of frozen outside, like 3, 4.
Uh,
Usually this time of year, we might even have like the odd multi-digit day or double-digit day, like 14 degrees or whatever, and they still might come here and there, but it's been cold.
yeah, I guess, well, so for anyone listening, you are based out of Victoria,
Yeah,
BC?
Victoria. So yeah, typically pretty temperate climate. I guess in terms of living in Canada, it's like one of the. I mean, I'm originally from like Toronto area, Pickering,
Uh,
Ontario, and honestly, I didn't know anywhere in Canada existed that wasn't in snow the entire winter season. So it like literally was in my 20s when I was starting to race mountain bikes and had been meeting friends from Victoria, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we ride all winter. There's
yeah.
no snow." I'm like, I didn't know that existed. Like, I guess the typical Canadian, or it's almost like my American view of Canadians, like we're all under snow from like November to April,
Yeah.
and that's how it was my whole life. But yeah, moved out here like 6 years ago, and yeah, we get to run and bike and be outside kind of all winter, and it's pretty sweet.
So you grew up in Toronto?
Just 30 minutes east of Toronto. So it's
Okay.
a city called Pickering. I guess it's not even that little. It's yeah, almost 100,000 people.
Yep.
Kind of GTA, so Greater Toronto Area. Toronto's like, yeah, kind of just a massive conglomerate of all these little
Yep.
areas around. So it's like Toronto, Scarborough, Pickering. Yeah.
Cool. And grew up mountain biking competitively, I read.
Yeah, so kind of that was my first I call it like my past life
Yep.
almost. So like yeah, coming out of got really into it kind of at the end of elementary school, so like grade 8, and then high school started to really find the passion for it. My dad started taking me to some races and started to like do all right, and then just kind of like started to take it pretty seriously. And then we started to go on racing on the Canada Cup series. So luckily at that time, a lot of the Canadian races were actually on the East Coast, like in Quebec. Funny enough, and like the race scene at that time, although it's downhill mountain biking, was really big in Ontario as well, with like
Mhm.
zero mountains. Um, so really odd, but they had a really great culture. So I kind of came up in this time where a lot of our competitive athletes were from Ontario. A lot of the national team and World Cup racers were from Ontario. And there's great Ontario race scene. So it's like kind of this perfect storm of highly competitive race series, even though the tracks are only 45 seconds long, when the average track is like 3 to 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Um, so I kind of like grew up that, and then yeah, the first Canada Cup, I think I was about 16 years old or 17 years old, and in Quebec and Bromont, and did that, and kind of I'd come off like doing quite all right at the provincial races, and it's like maybe a bit cocky, and then
Yep.
went into the Canada Cup and just got my ass kicked. I was like, oh no, like this is a whole other level. And I remember going back home being like, okay, not gonna let that happen again. And then 2 weeks later, there was another Canada Cup, and like just somehow turned around and ended up winning that race, like the whole thing. And that actually kind of like set
Mhm.
me on the path. That qualified me that year for the world championships. Kind of flew to Italy, did my first world champs, and then made the team 5 years after, like consecutively, and kind of just climbed the ranks. And that took me to kind of 25 years old.
Hmm. I actually grew up ski racing, so we raced at Bromont back in the day.
Okay, like downhill ski racing.
Yeah, so I've actually been there, but long story
It's pretty
short,
sweet,
that was
eh?
a
Yeah.
different life.
Yeah, no, for sure.
um,
And that's how I kind of explain people, like not everyone knows what downhill mountain biking is. I'm like, well, you've probably seen the Olympics, like downhill ski racing. It's
yeah,
like we do the same thing, but through the trees,
yep,
like timed run, individual, just like all out, top to bottom, one run, one go. So
right.
you know it well, high pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good way to kind of grow up and keep yourself out of trouble, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's
But
all consuming. I mean, yeah, I think you either stress your parents out, kind of going like the typical kid route of maybe like getting into mischief and going to parties and stuff, or you're risking your life each weekend. I think it's probably, I don't know which one they would choose if you gave them the option, but I know my
yeah,
parents were happy when I, hung up the helmet, and stopped risking it, every weekend, but they were
Yeah.
super supportive at the same time.
Did you want to be a business owner growing up as well, or did you always kind of want to be an entrepreneur?
I hadn't really thought about it because like I'm usually pretty one track mind. So professional athlete was kind of like what I thought would be the path. And like I got there in some kind of humble way. I wasn't like biking was sort of my job and making some money here and there, like not enough, but
Mhm.
and it's a fairly underfunded sport too. Like downhill mountain biking is not Olympic, so it doesn't get any, support from the federation. Like it's so bad that even at world champs, you have to pay for your jersey. Like that's
Yeah.
how kind of pathetic the funding is from Canada Cycling and all of that. And like, I understand they have their priorities, but it's also like kind of ridiculous to represent your country and you're paying for your own jersey. But
Mhm.
that was kind of what led to like me not continuing in mountain biking was just because, the year I retired and I was still quite young, like I said, 25 years old, I probably still had 5 years of like actual, it's pretty, that sport is pretty young personally. You have people winning at like 17, 18 years old in the World Cup. And you can like, be pretty competitive from like 17 to 35. But at 30, you're getting, like you're up there. So,
Yeah.
um, but that said, like at 25, I finished that season ranked second in Canada, and just had to hang it up with that, like kind of being like
Yeah.
looking into the future 5 years. Maybe am I going to kind of be where I want to be financially, and
Mhm.
these next 5 years is kind of where I need to start building my family, building like security, and like when you're 30 years old, it's like kind of like let's get going a little bit. So, in my own timeline, everyone is on their own timeline, but in mine, I wanted to kind of by
Mhm.
30 be where I am now. So like it worked out. Like I've got a 5-month-old child, I'm married, and I own a business, which is cool. But
So grown up.
yeah, so grown up, and it just happens too. For
Yeah.
anyone, I'm sure that's gone through that, it's like you don't feel like it's not like these moments where you're like, oh, I have a kid, I'm a dad now, or like I'm married. It's like it all feels relatively the same. It's just like the evolution of life. Like it's like
Mhm.
I would say it's like when you were a kid, think back. You always thought like adults were like they had it figured out, like they graduated some like adult school and now they're
Mhm.
like qualified to tell you what to do, but you just become one. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like it
for
just
sure.
happens, and it's actually scary because you look at all the people that you knew when you were a kid that were you would classify as maybe not so bright, and they also just grow into adults and start telling people what to do.
That's
So
so
it's a bit
true.
scary to think that like there's some pretty underqualified people in different authority positions, but
Dude,
um,
yeah.
life just kind of happens, and you make the best of it. But long story short, no, like kind of as I hit like retired, I went back to school at that point. I was like, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I went into sport management program here on the island at Coastal College, thinking that the next evolution and the next logical step would be working in the sport industry, perhaps helping athletes like myself or being involved in the Olympic side of things. So I got a job actually while in school at the Canadian Sport Institute doing just that, working with talent development, Canadian Sports School. But just during that whole process, still felt like empty. Like I didn't have my mountain biking dream anymore, and this didn't fill the void as I thought it would.
Mhm.
And yeah, so just like in my last year of school, kind of going into it, where you're kind of asking yourself even more deeply, like, what am I going to do after this? Like, what's the pathway? And although I could see what it was, I could climb my way up in this organization with the right schooling and networking and all of that. But I was like, that's not what I want. Like, that doesn't excite me. It doesn't fuel that fire.
Mhm.
So I decided, I'm going to try and start a business. That was literally the only thought that went into it. I wanted to create a brand around everything I had experienced. So I wanted it to be athletic because that's what I used to do. I wanted it to be in apparel because that's what I enjoyed. And I wanted to be kind of in socks because that was one of my things I always really gravitated towards when like dressing myself for cycling. I liked funky socks. I liked kind of expressing myself that way, especially in the later years. But in hindsight, I would say that like entrepreneurship manifests itself in many ways. And I'd say like mine did in athletics. Like if I look back, I was never the most talented athlete or the most like well prepared because, well, not well prepared, but not, I didn't have the best opportunities living in Ontario, but I always made the best of it. I was highly prepared. So like I would attack things a bit differently, make sure I do my research, watch videos, like obsess over all the different little aspects and not take it for granted. So I think and market myself well, book all my own travel, keep my expenses in line. So basically ran myself like a little business. So like when I actually started business, although I may not have known all the fancy terms, or I may not have known legal structures and all that stuff that you figure out either the hard or good way, I knew how to do marketing. I knew how to handle finances. I knew how to talk to people, network. I knew how to negotiate. So a lot of those hard skills I was building over the 10 years traveling the world, racing my bike, or soft skills, maybe, I don't know, both. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I'd say like there's entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business. I think you can also be entrepreneurial in a company too. Like I'd say like a lot of the people that work at Endūr, I try to hire are quite entrepreneurial. Like they are carving their own path. They're coming in and affecting change. And it's not always about just starting a business, I think.
So when you got into socks, what was the reason behind socks? Your own personal interest, or did you kind of spot a hole in the market?
No, I'd like to like I could sit here and tell you that I was like had this master plan and thought I was like a genius and saw this market opportunity, and here's the total available market, and you know it's worth billions of dollars, and here's this white space where I'm gonna no, none of that stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
basically wanted to create a brand, which is the first thing I did. So I created the Endūr brand. I came up with the name and the logo and the Instagram page, and started marketing basically what I wanted that brand to represent, which is a brand for athletes that weren't necessarily winning, and it wasn't celebrating winning. It was celebrating kind of the struggle to get to that podium, or the struggle that is required in training or competing, and the ups and downs and the perseverance. So I felt like there was an opportunity to celebrate kind of the perseverance side of athletics. And that's kind of where the name comes from, of endure. Basically, you know, keep moving forward without giving up. Anything is possible. And, you know, the end goal might not be, you know, where you end up might not be where you originally thought, but I think if you're always kind of charging forward, you'll end up somewhere better than if you were to give up or quit. So that could be the same true of like my biking career. You know, it didn't end up where I thought, but I'm exactly where I want to be, and exactly kind of what I wished I would have got out of biking. You know, like financial security, working for myself, all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. Like if biking could have provided that, great, but I found it in business, and I call what we do the sport of business. Like it's my
Mm-hmm.
like second act and my second sport, and that's how we approach it. But then we like, so I built the brand, and I knew I wanted to build that brand into like apparel. I really liked how like Red Bull had created, you know, their energy drink, but they created this big brand around the energy drink. So I was like, what could our like flagship product be? And I always liked socks. Like I said earlier, I actually had a sock sponsor in my later years of the career. And like when I went into school, I would still wear those funky socks, and I was already known as the sock guy, funny enough, like before I even started a sock business. So it's kind of like, why not? You know, I knew how these other sock companies that I wanted to like kind of compete against, or I knew would be our like rivals right out of the gate. I knew how they were all using one or two of the same kind of manufacturers in the US. They were all doing the same sort of designs, and I was like, okay, we'll go that route. So I got in touch with that manufacturer, got the pricing, and it's like, it just, to me, it didn't make sense. I was like, this could be just done a lot better. Like this could be improved tenfold. So that was where I was like, okay, well, we have this brand. We'll continue building that through our messaging and marketing and brand ambassadors and all that. And we're going to get to work on this product. We're going to, you know, buy all of the socks around, the Nikes, the Stance, everyone else, and be like, what makes each one special, and what makes, you know, what are the highest quality products or parts of the socks that we can kind of incorporate into one, and what designs are missing. And so we just started on this track of finding our own manufacturer overseas, developing our own relationship, building the sock from scratch, and then just over 4 years now, kind of innovating around those different aspects. So socks are like, if you ask me today, I'd say that Endure is like a marketing engine, and like socks are kind of our vehicle for like spreading the word of our brand. You know, so
Absolutely.
like we're like a marketing and design studio, and socks is the way that we like spread that message. You know.
Absolutely. That's actually coincidentally how one way I've viewed Rose Coffee is it's kind of a media company that aims to plant trees that sells coffee.
Yeah, and you
um,
kind of have to be in this day and age.
yeah,
Like you have to be more than your product, because people are really, what people are buying into is brand. And the end of the day, like the feeling you give them when they buy, you know, your product versus someone else's. And I'm sure that you've seen customers that probably buy your coffee because they know and they feel good that you're going off and, like you said, planting a tree or doing something for the environment. And you know, if I can get that feeling buying your coffee versus someone else's, then great. Especially if it costs me the same or even just a little bit more, like people will gravitate towards your brand.
Yeah, I mean, coffee's tough. It's a commodity. There's a lot of coffee companies out there, but the idea behind it was, well, first of all, you have to have good product. So no one's going to buy your coffee or socks if it's not a premium product. But like you guys, it was kind of a vehicle to promote reforestation and whatnot. So it sounds like a similar sort of story.
Yeah, and I think like the best and like the no pun intended, like enduring brands, they have a mission larger than the product that they're selling, that they're like, so our like why we get up every day is to create and like inspire people to just persevere. You know what I mean? And like if our socks can put a smile on your face at the very least when you pull up a llama on your sock, and like that's a win for us for that day, right? And then it's a benefit that sock will also be supportive. It won't fall down. It'll breathe well. You can go seamlessly from work to play. Like those are all great things, but we focus on kind of that aha moment or that smile, or you pull it on and be like, you know, this is the sock I put on when I'm going to go do a 5K PR. You know, like that's what we're aiming to elicit in like our customers. It's not about, you know, we don't want to be like, we don't come out and say like, this is the best technical sock, it will never wear out. Like we know, like the reality of performance products is that they wear out. They're designed to be used at a high level for a short period of time, like running shoes, right? Like the highest priced running shoes, you know, look at like the Nike Vaporfly or something, you can wear them like 10 times before the soles start to rip out, you know, like
exactly.
It's because every time you wear them, they're the best performing shoes. So we ride that kind of fine line of performance and design but we mostly want people, when they put on our socks, to feel something, whether or not that's happiness or inspiration, or like, this is the sock, you know, I put on to get shit done. That's kind of like what we're aiming to do.
Do you guys manufacture in China?
No, so our primary manufacturer, we have a few, but our primary factory and our longest standing partner since day one is in the Philippines.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's been a great experience working there. And it wasn't, you know, this master plan again of like, okay, the Philippines is where we want to produce. It just ended up that way. And since sourcing from other parts of the world, the Philippines is just a fantastic culture to work with. They take care of their people. You know, social responsibility was important to us. So like our factory in particular, you know, is RAP certified. So it's, you know, fair pay. You know, they get all the holidays off, which, you know, is great, and safe working conditions and all that great stuff, you know, ethically sourced materials and all of that. So that was super important. I think you kind of have to be riding that wave these days for sure. People, you know, kind of like, they won't even look at you if you're not being socially responsible. So it's not even a marketing ploy anymore. It's just a bare necessity in business, is that you have to be above board.
So when people ask you what differentiates Endūr apparel and socks and whatnot, what do you tell them? What's your 30-second sort of elevator pitch?
So I'd say what we've done better than anyone else is combine function and design. So like our socks will be on par with the highest quality sock also out there. But the way we've applied our designs as well is very thoughtful and different than what's currently out there. In addition to that, we've innovated around the business model. So a lot of our longstanding rivals and competitors are traditionally sold through wholesale.
Right, I read that,
So we're able, out of the box, able to provide a similar, if not better quality product for 10 to 25% less without compromising anything. That's simply because we're not trying to satisfy the needs of a middleman. And so there's no layered on margin. There's no kind of slow moving. In addition to that, we're not trying to satisfy the needs of these wholesale buyers 6 months in advance. So we're able to bring designs to market every month and bring fresh stuff that's on trend, that people want, that they're asking. So we're reacting in real time to customer feedback. Like, hey guys, we want more fall style socks, or I need a thicker sock, or if we see something that's doing well, we can bring it out in 5 different colorways the next month, and kind of move quickly and adapt to what our customers actually want.
And things are going pretty well. It sounds like you built things up to the point where you're at 7 figures. What's kind of the highlight of the business now in that sense?
So like we've been bootstrapped since day one. The business started, I started with a friend in college. We both invested $1,000 to get it off the ground. That included our business at that time, registration fees, and getting our Shopify store up, and buying our first lot of socks. And that was 230 pairs that we bought. and that's what our money could get us. And we sold those, and we thought those would last. This was October. It's like literally like 4 years ago, like almost a couple weeks to the day. We got our first delivery, and we're like, okay, this will be enough socks to sell for months. Like
Yeah.
how are we going to sell 230 pairs of socks? And we ended up selling them in less than a week. Some stars aligned. We didn't really sell many online because that's a really hard game to dial in, but we were in school at the time. So we hustled them around to our friends. Obviously our family members bought a bunch. And then there's a lot of local athletic events in Victoria. And at that time there was a cyclocross series going on, like, road bike racing off-road basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so we set up a little booth and sold some there. And so, yeah, we sold out in like 7 days, which was like a catch-22 because now we have no product again and we have no idea how to manage our supply chain. So we're probably, at that time we're 45 days out from another delivery because we got to like place it, produce it, ship it, yada, yada. So we kind of just started figuring all that out, got more socks in and just kept reinvesting the profits. We never like got fancy. We worked out of a basement until we hit 7 figures in revenue, so like we didn't hire anyone until hitting nearly 7 figures in revenue. So like,
That's cool.
It was about 2 years in until we actually hired someone, which was a designer, and moved into like a garage space, like a warehouse, like industrial area of Victoria. It was a garage basically. Out of the basement into a garage. And that's where things started to kind of really pick up. We got onto Dragon's Den at that same time. And then we just kind of kept turning it up from there. And, current day, we're multiple millions annually. We have, about 10 people employed at our HQ, including some of our part-time people. And then we have a bunch of contract positions, and we're sold quite broadly throughout North America. Canada is still our primary market. But this year was our push into the US, and that's been going well as well.
Did you keep the company 100% owned by yourselves? Or did you sell equity?
It's gone through some different changes. Like I said, in the early days, I started it with my co-founder. And so we were 50-50. And then literally like a couple months in, his uncle, who is a businessman and successful businessman, gave us some like seed money, like nothing at that. Like it's nothing in today's money, but then it was like the most money I've ever seen, like 20 grand.
Yeah.
He took a big chunk of the company because like at that time, the first year, there was no goal for this thing. It was, like I said, it was really just like, I'm going to start a business. I brought in my friend, just because it was going to be fun to do it, with somebody than do it alone. And, if most people who are in business are hearing me say this to me, like, that's a big no, so it's like, you don't bring someone in just because you want company, you need someone that complements and has the same values when it comes to work ethic and stuff like that.
Maybe that's the secret. Everyone's always saying textbook, do this, do that. But sometimes I think, like the secret is just to do what works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, there's definitely no one way, but, so yeah, like kind of, but once the business started to take that turn of where it became a real going concern, that's when my co-founder made a decision that, this isn't the life I want to live. I don't want to work this hard. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. And so at that time, we just did a reorg, and I bought him and his uncle out. And so, yeah, I own 100%. And I've since put like a stock option plan in place for some of my key employees. So that's out there as well. But in terms of control and ownership, to get to this multi 7 figures a year, it's all been off profits and personal financing. So to do the buyout and stuff like that. So the only money that came into the company was that 20 grand to basically get incorporated. So if you don't want to classify us as bootstrap because we had a bit of money to get incorporated, sure. But basically from the start of 2017 till today, that's the only money that's come in financing wise. So I consider us bootstrap because that basically never went into the actual business operations. It just got us, the lawyer fees and incorporation fees and trademark fees, all that stuff. So, but the actual growth and everything you see today was built off us building a business that makes money.
Do you think you'll have to raise money in the future if you keep growing the way you're at, or is the plan to bootstrap forever?
We'll see. I mean, like the benefit now is that like we have access to lines of credit. We have access to debt if we need it, because we are 4 years in. Like business is really like a war of attrition. You know, it's like if you can stay alive long enough so people start to like give you things, because in the first 2 years no one will give you anything. You don't have the 2 years of financials, so you can't go get bank loans or lines of credit. And so like, and then you don't have the credibility, you don't have enough data. So like after you kind of get 2 years, then you kind of get a little bit of like, you catch your breath a bit. So like we're in a good position. I mean, you never know what could happen. There might be an opportunity that comes up where it's like the biggest swing ever and we have to figure that out. But as it stands, we have a profitable business and we've like our supply chain's really dialed in. So we're never having to hold too much inventory to satisfy our sales. And like, we're pretty good at forecasting. I'd like to think we could probably go from like where we are currently to 8 figures annually without raising money, like pretty confidently. Because we're also building a nest egg. I've like stayed relatively humble throughout this thing and I've reinvested everything. Like I don't like take a lot of money out of the company just because like it is my best investment. You know, it's like, it's the highest performing thing I think I could keep my money in, so I'm not going to pull it out. So yeah, we just kind of focus on reinvesting every year, and we're moving offices now, and this would be, I'd say, like the fanciest thing we've done. Like it's a pretty sweet spot. It's like still like was able to negotiate an amazing price, and we have like an awesome thing. So it's not like dumb money. We just needed it. We're outgrowing everything, like in terms of warehousing our stock and our people demand, and we needed a place to grow into. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. And like I always like to look back, and a lot of things I've said or thought change all the time. So like I would never say no, we won't need financing, but our goal is to build the company in a way that we wouldn't need to go the equity route. We would just go debt routes, or just figure out how to sell more socks. You know, it's a funny quote. I forget who said it, but I can paraphrase it my own sense. It's like, we have the easiest business in the world. All we have to do is sell more socks. You know, so just like all you have to do is sell more coffee, and all your problems are solved. So if you look at it like that, then you can maybe just like from there figure, okay, like how can we simplify a lot of other things and just make this like a more achievable goal, and it doesn't always need to be so complicated.
So how have you guys distributed the socks to the wholesaler? Did you hire a sales team, or did you have to do the sales yourself throughout stores?
So initially we went into stores and we hired some sales reps, but we wanted to be digital first, and that doesn't work well when you're trying to go into stores at the same time, because they want the lion's share of the sales. They want to dictate terms, they want to dictate pricing and margins, all that stuff. So we learned kind of early on that wasn't the route we wanted to go, and so we actually pulled out a wholesale like a year and a half in. We're 2 years in, and just said we're going 100% online. So like so then we just brought it all in house and just started our marketing efforts. We started our partnerships. And we just started, selling our socks through our own website. And, you know, we're at that point, we like got up to around 200 stores. So like we were in a lot of stores, but it just wasn't the model. Like I said, like what made us different was the direct to consumer option. It's what our better price points. And when we were in stores, we just found ourselves in that rut of a business model that everyone else was. And we're like, again, just saying to ourselves, like, this could be done better. Like there's no reason, you can't try on socks anyways. They make 0 cents in a store. I mean, the sizing is very easy. It's not like selling a t-shirt where like every t-shirt, every medium is different, you know? Socks are basically, they're by like shoe size range. So you can't really mess it up unless you're on the edge. And they're unisex. So it's like this perfect product to sell online. It's like buying razors. It's like, you know, you don't need to go into the store. You can't even, they're like locked up in the stores anyways. You know, you can't even touch them. So, we pulled out, and then we just started selling online. We do have like, you know, our custom stock side of the business. We still handle that all digitally too. We just buy, you know, advertising and basically field warm leads, people that are looking for socks already. They've come to the aha moment that like, we need custom socks for our company. They find us, we built a nice landing page. We have a design team that gets designs done for free and then starts the sales process internally. That's really been like the economic engine too, because that's where, you know, we can get much larger volume orders of people that pay in advance for their socks, and then we deliver it, which allows us to reinvest into the inventory holding side and our marketing side of the business that usually sucks cash.
So right now, are you in stores then across Canada, or you aren't?
No, we pulled out. We're in a few stores. We're in a few stores that basically our model for wholesale is, if you want to carry our stuff, amazing. here's our terms, here's our pricing. We're not
see.
changing the way we operate online. We'll support you in store. We'll drive people to you, but we dictate the terms on how we run our brand. Like, we're not going, you know, and if you don't want to, that's fine. Like, if you like what we're doing, you like what we're about, you understand our product is high value at a good price, then we're more than happy to work with that person. And we have some great relationships. We have like a coffee shop, Cafe Noisette, maybe I'm saying that right or wrong, that buys our socks, you know, often and sells through a ton of them. And that's the perfect situation for us, is like, where can we seamlessly integrate into like where athletes may be going, in this case a coffee shop in Quebec, because like every cyclist or runner kind of like starts or ends at a coffee shop, you know, so it makes a lot of sense. And that's the kind of, you know, partner we love. And like, so we have no interest in being like in Sport Check or any of that kind of stuff. Like, the retail we are in is really niche, and kind of like, we want to again focus on creating that community aspect. Where can we integrate our product into where our customers are already hanging out?
So what percentage of your sales are online versus in store now?
Oh, I'd say 99% online.
Really?
Yeah, if not more. Yeah,
That's awesome.
our online business is everything for us. Like, our wholesale business is just marketing, really. Like, the margins are low, and like I said, we're very specific on who our partners are for that. And there's only a handful of stores throughout Canada that we sell into, like under 10. So like, it's nothing. Just because it's not a focus. Like I said, if it happens, great, but we don't put much more thought into it than that. So yeah, 99% of our sales are online. I'd say 75% is in Canada and 25% in the US.
Do you have to carry much inventory?
Yeah, we do now. It's kind of been growing as we've been growing, obviously, but luckily, like I said earlier, our supply chain and turnaround time is quite low. So like, we don't, like, for example, if we had a 3 or 4 month lead on product, we'd have to hold way more.
Yeah.
But we're able to turn around our product in quite high quantities in 3 to 5 weeks. So as long as we're doing kind of like our estimates correctly, we never have to hold more. Like, we're turning over the product basically before we have to pay for it usually. So, you know, that's the beauty. If you can figure that out, if you can figure out how to have a sell-through rate in line with the terms, you're able to kind of like take your profit off, reinvest that right away, pay your bills when they come due, buy more product, and you got to play that game. I think it's the people that aren't thinking far enough ahead, or find themselves in situations where they're satisfying the needs of other people or buyers, etc., that have way too much inventory. Now they're, you know, the way you need to look at your inventory is cash. You know what I mean? It's like I look at every sock we have in our warehouse as like X dollar bill. You know what I mean? It's like we joke around and say that we're playing the sock market. You know, we're taking our money, turning it into socks, and trying to sell it to other people for more money, and then doing it over. So it's kind of like this funny game of our sock market. But, that's the way you got to look at inventory, and like, it's most simplistic in terms, right? You invest your hard-earned dollars into a product, sell it to other people to try and make more hard-earned dollars. So, and provide value. Like, it's not a scam, obviously, right?
Absolutely.
Like, for giving people a really high quality product, and a lot goes into it. Like, it's not, we're just buying these crappy socks and selling them for more. Like,
for sure,
there's a whole team of people innovating around this, designing it, writing stories around the different designs, inspiring, creating so it's a huge process, obviously, but in very simplistic terms, we sell more socks, you know? So
that's cool. We found credit terms really helped us out in that scenario. If you can get something along those lines, it really eases the burden month to month.
Yeah, and again, like I said, like, you stick around long enough to prove your worth to your suppliers, your manufacturers, they're more likely to extend you credit, right? Like, same with the banks, same with your other partners. So like, it's like anything, it's like a relationship with anyone, like, you build trust, right? So that's what makes business really hard, is it's so hard to get all those things in the early days, unless you maybe have a track record. So like, sure, if you were to go into a second business, we probably have a little bit of trust pre-built that we've done it before. But like, as a first-time entrepreneur, you're high risk. You know, you're risk bound. Everyone's looking at you like a hand grenade. You know, so you got to kind of just build the trust over years, and that's so important that you don't blow up. You know, and that you don't burn down bridges along the way, even though people will kind of like, in the early days, maybe just tell you to piss off, or they'll brush you off, or they might be mean to you, or whatever. But you just got to kind of what I found is those people come back around.
Mm.
And it's usually in your best interest to not have blown up at them in the early days and been like, you know, F you or whatever. So you don't always get it right. Like, I'm not going to say, I sit here and say I've never burned a bridge, but like, advice to anyone listening is that it usually comes back around. So
when you went on Dragon's Den, how was that experience? Did you find it worthwhile?
Yeah, I mean, like, the takeaway for us was just the level of preparation we put into going on the show. Like I said, that was kind of like, I would say, is like the pivotal moment of this is going to be a real thing we're going for. At that time, like, that's kind of when we were just starting to make our first hire, just moving into that garage, and like, is this going to be a business where we're going to pay ourselves? Like, I had worked 3 jobs in addition to this for the first year of the business to like pay my bills. I wasn't paying ourselves. Like, we took like $1,000. Once we started making money, we started paying ourselves $1,000 a month. So nothing. There's no like, you can't. You know, my rent was $1,200. You know, it's underwater just paying rent. So I worked at a bike shop. I worked at Canadian Sport Institute, like I said, and I did some mountain bike coaching. So I did a bunch of different little hustles on the side that worked well with being an entrepreneur. And then, yeah, so like we did a bunch of preparation. That's when we really dived into our numbers, looked at the market, started to really do the real business stuff, and like figure out like, what are our financials? Like how do we sort all of this out? Like, we were pretty smart off the beginning to have a bookkeeper, and like, so like we didn't have to figure all that out. Like we've always operated in a way that was super professional. Like, we knew that like at least we need to be organized and tracked from day one. So it wasn't like we were just doing this project and not taking it seriously. We always took it seriously. Just never knew if it would become something that provided an income or like, you know, became like this brand it is today. So Dragon's Den was, like, forced us to go through all those, you know, mental exercises of like, where could this go? What would we use investment for? How do you pitch? Like, what are the terms we need to know? All that stuff. And then going on the show was also a good experience. But in the end of the day, like, Dragon's Den's job is to create reality TV, right? So it's not so much. Yeah, it's not so much about like business negotiations or them wanting to help you. It's about making good TV. So we went in there with a rich valuation because, like, I always have high expectations of myself and what I'm doing. So
they were critical of that, I saw.
Yeah, and that's what our episode was. Our episode, there's always the themes of Dragon's Den, right? It's either the underdog story that's doing great and the Dragons help them out. It's like, this is goodwill, which, you know, those deals aren't closing. Business isn't goodwill. Like, they can say what they want. Then there's the story of you coming with too high a valuation, you're going to get roasted, right? And so that was our story. So like, that's how they built the thing, was like, so if you looked back at our episode and you took the view of, okay, is this a good commercial for Endūr? It was good in the sense that we handled ourselves well, and we were polite, respectful, and answered all their questions thoughtfully and diligently, and knew our stuff. But they didn't give any air to what made our business special or our product special or anything like that. Even though we were in the den for 45 minutes and explained all of that, you only saw 6-7 minutes of them being like, your value is too high, like blah, 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 blah. So the experience overall was great. And like, I don't have any regrets or anything, but like, in terms of what you would think, you're going to go on national TV and your business is just going to like skyrocket, you know, like, yeah, there was some stuff after like sales peaked and people were checking us out, and it provided more credibility, but it wasn't like this, like this moment that just changed everything for us. If anything, like, it was just a normal day, you know, after it aired. And it's more so about what you make of it afterwards. Cause like, now if people see, oh, Endūr was on Dragon's Den, like I said, that was in those early years, like a piece of credibility we could hang our hat on, you know? Now we don't need to say it so much and we don't really talk about it much, but it was a great thing. And just on a personal note, like, I've always watched the show as a kid and stuff, and it was just cool to do it. You know, like I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, I shit on it sometimes, and like, I think it's kind of silly these days, and they've made it way too much like reality TV. And like, I'm not overly like inspired by the current Dragons, to be honest. Like, so it's just like, I think they have a lot of work to do, but at the same time, I appreciate what they're doing. And at the end of the day, they're all successful and like, they have a good show. So.
Have you guys talked to any of the Dragons after on maybe a deal that would work out in the future?
No, and your level of access is not like that either. You basically, you you never talk to them before. You show up the day of filming, you sit in this concrete area, and they call you in, you're on camera, and then you bail. You don't ever see them, like, other than that. You don't, there's no like formal communication chains. I'm sure you could reach out after and maybe they'd remember you, but it's really kind of like you're dealing with the producers and your producer. You get your date, you show up, you pitch, and you leave. Like there's no real like, like area where you're all hanging out after and talking. It's not like that, unfortunately. So there's not much communication. You'd have to make the direct communication in some other way after to kind of keep the conversation going. And they weren't very happy with us because, we got two offers and I turned them both down. So I don't think like there wasn't much more of a conversation to have there. And for us, like, it was an eye opener that, like, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We don't need $100,000 right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, to get one of these people in. Like, we'll just go make $100,000 some other way.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Well, that's like, that show just seems to become a reality show surrounded around criticism.
Yeah. It's yeah, I don't know. You're right. Like, it's either they like them or they hate them. There's no like in the middle, and they talk about being supportive of this and that. And then I don't know. It's reality TV. That's all I can really say.
Exactly.
So I can't fault them because that's their job. So like, I'm sure on a personal note, them all as like business people, if you were to meet with them individually, it'd be a much different experience. And I'm near certain of that. But like, when you're there, it feels weird. It feels scripted. It feels like they're trying to drive the conversation in ways that makes good TV,
Exactly.
So it's like, didn't feel authentic when we were in there, for sure. It's kind of just like odd.
Yeah. Well, not constructive either. It seems like these people should be trying to help people out. I mean, unless there's just some obvious fraud coming along, why don't they give you positive feedback and try and support you?
Yeah. I mean, they could. And to Arlene's credit, like, we went in there, we were in the last week of filming. And so they've probably seen like hundreds of pitches. So I'd imagine they're super tired and like just over it a bit. And so like the second we started, like, they were all grumpy with their questions. Like, you didn't see a lot of these ones, but like, it was kind of like coming at us rapid fire. And like, one by one, I had to turn them and show them that like, hey, our business is good and we know our stuff and we're respectful, even though you're insulting us sometimes with your questions,
Yeah.
like. And so at the end, like, Arlene was like, I like you guys. Like, I wish I could help. And, Jim gave us an offer and we turned Michelle, and Lane was kind of backing us up at one point, like, to when I turned down Michelle, she was all, heard no for the first time in years, probably, so like, and basically he said to her, he's like, they don't need to take your shitty deal. Like, and so I appreciated that. So like, they kind of like at the end there were a bit real and realized that like we were taking this seriously. We weren't just there for promotion. Like, we took it very seriously, and we would have taken a deal at the terms we wanted, if not a little bit more. I mean, they would have been really, really happy with their investment had they made it then. So
really?
Like, yeah, like, that's all. Like, they said it was rich. I knew where we were going. I mean, if they invested, I mean, I wouldn't sell 6% of the company for $100,000 today. So
Really?
I wouldn't nowhere close. They would be in a good position if they had taken the swing, but they couldn't see the future. So whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the tricky part, I would, looking at the businesses, how did you know that people were willing to buy the socks online? Is that kind of a leap of faith? That's one thing we've kind of wondered at Rose Coffee is, how do you really know?
You don't. I mean, and I always say this is like, when you're going to start your business, you can only really call in, like, what would you do? Like, how would you, like, what would make you want to buy these socks online? Like, what, like, it goes down to the whole thing of like solving a problem, right? Like, what's the problem you have? And I think the people that don't necessarily make it are the ones that are trying to solve a problem they don't care about. So that they don't really have an experience of like, like, if I was trying to sell, I don't know, like some silly product online that I didn't really have a problem with, I'm not sure that it would have worked out, because I wouldn't have cared enough to go through all the bullshit in the 2 years to like keep going. You know what I mean? So like, I loved what we did. I loved our brand. So like, I was willing to kind of like take the days. There'd be multiple stretches in the early days of like no sales. You know what I mean? Like, and even like things go up and down. And like, even during COVID this year, like, our factory had to shut down for safety reasons. And like our custom business went to zero. You know, the month before it was doing multiple six figures. So to see like that is like crazy, right? And like we had to shut the office down. So like you never know what's going to come up, but if you don't love what you're doing, those things will take you out, you know, like you're done. And that's what like being an athlete, right, is like, and that's where I come back to say like why like this is the sport of business, is because like everyone looks at entrepreneurship or athletes as like this glamorous life. You work for yourself, like you have this opportunity to make all this money, blah, blah, blah. And in an athlete's case, it's like, oh, they're on the Olympic stage, they're getting gold medals. But like the reality is like 99.9% of the time, it's hard work. And you wouldn't want to do it. You know, it's not fun. Like you don't want to go run every day like these professional runners do, like these marathon runners, you know what I mean? Like that's not a great life, but they do it because they love it and it's great for them. But like the average person that's like, oh, I wish I could do that. Like you don't wish you could do it unless you'd be willing to do the work. And I guarantee that like most people don't want to go through that level of pain, and that's okay. And that's like totally okay. So it's like, I think that's, people need to realize that like you can't have your cake and eat it too, you know? It's like, and like you don't have to be an entrepreneur, you don't have to be a professional athlete. I think people need to have those kind of real conversations with themselves and understand like it's not all what you see, you know? It's like it's you know it better than most. It's hard work. You know,
it is stress and all that. But I think you're right when you talk about finding something you actually like. In the case of coffee and chocolate, I love coffee and chocolate. So is it solving a problem necessarily in the market? Maybe not. We like to give back to the environment and reforestation, which I think is a problem. So in that sense, we're maybe solving a problem. But if you don't like it, then it's really hard.
Yeah, and there may not, problem can be defined how you want. Like the problem you might be solving, you know, is like just a better way to buy coffee or a better way to source it or whatever, or a better way to brand it. It doesn't need to be like a problem per se, but like it needs to be fulfilling a market need, right? Like we didn't solve the problem of socks, you know, they existed, right? What we did is we found a way to provide people a better price point, more fun designs, and a different way of viewing their socks. So like we're effectively solved the problem people didn't know they had, but like at the same time, we wanted to give that emotional response. Like I said, like when you put the sock on, if it makes you smile or it makes you inspired, that's the goal. Like that's the win.
Creating products people don't know they want yet.
And that's it. Like that's a cool thing. There's always things like, you know, people don't know what they want till you show them. So like, and that probably an important thing in the early days as well is that like you'll get a lot of feedback, and especially if you start to get successful, people will be like, oh, you should do this or try that. Like just stay focused. Take those like opinions in, write them down, but like think about how they could impact what you're doing right now. Like we got so distracted in the early days by like, you know, my co-founder's uncle or other people just trying to tell us to do this and that. Like, and it's all like generally speaking in good faith, but like it's misguided. They don't understand exactly like what your vision or your focus is. And in those early days, like any diversion from like the main goal sets you so far back, you know? It'd be like, you know, it'd be like running and stopping to take a sip of water every time rather than just like carrying the bottle with you. You know, it's like just keep moving forward. So I can't stress enough that like as you start to get success in business, all these opportunities start popping up and things you could be doing, and you'll probably be a bit of a delusion that you think, oh, I could replicate my amazing success because I'm a genius and all these other things, but like you may have got lucky too. And I believe that like luck plays a part in some of this stuff, and you should maybe focus pretty heavily on what's working now rather than trying to like look at all the shiny objects around you. You know?
Did you ever think about pivoting Endūr to another product or business?
We did dabble in like starting to build our apparel line. So we started to do underwear and sports bras and some performance sunglasses and caps. And that was the realization. It's like, you start to think like, where's the scale going to come from, right? Like where how are we going to grow this thing? And that we didn't, you know, as we quadrupled the size of our product line, we didn't also quadruple the size of our team. So like everyone's workload basically like got distributed 25%, you know, 4 ways. So we just found that like our actual core product line, all the cool things we're doing with our socks now got 25% of the time they did before. So it ended up, and in addition to that, we now had way more rivals and competitors. Like we're doing sports bras. Okay, what makes yours better than Lululemon? We're doing sunglasses. What makes yours better than Oakley? We're doing hats. What makes you better than, you know, Cielo or New Era? It's like And I couldn't answer those questions as well as I could answer socks. Like I can answer very confidently, like what makes our socks the best. Like
Hmm.
I know our socks are the best, but like our hats and bras and sunglasses, all that stuff is like, they weren't the best. So
Hmm.
like we had to be okay with that. And so we scrapped those product lines. And from there is when we've really seen our biggest level of growth, because we started to, we went from like holding 20 designs to over 100. We went from offering just purchase one time to an innovative kind of sock subscription program where,
Hmm.
we have thousands of subscribers that receive socks each month. And it's not just a regular pair of socks. You get a limited edition pair with a story card that provides more inspiration. So like we kind of didn't just do the average sock subscription. We thought about how could this be done better, and really just kind of applied that level of thinking to kind of everything we've done. Is like, how could this be done better? How could we build our website better, simpler to navigate, and just kind of keep going on that path. And people like to think that your scale or growth might need to come from diversifying, but like there's unlimited opportunity. We could sell 100 times more socks
Hmm.
and still have room to grow, so we'll just focus on that.
That's cool. Designs. Do you make all those designs, or do you have a designer now? Because that's awesome for the company.
Yeah, no, I don't do them.
uh,
I used to. We have a couple designers. One in particular that's really kind of early days. Like she was a hire, like my second hire, and she's kind of carved out how they look today and like helped build that and like brought the vision to life. I didn't have the skills to bring that vision to life, and she helped me see some things. And so yeah, all our designs are done in house. They're not buying them. We're not contracting them out. So yeah, we've got a design team. We have everything kind of major in-house. We have like full-time operations, full-time design, full-time marketing. We don't outsource a lot of that stuff just because like our brand messaging and the way we operate is very specific, and it's hard to relay that to contract partners. Things you can contract are like bookkeeping, accounting, maybe email marketing because it's a little more automated. So we and web development, minor fixes here and there. Like we contract all that stuff out because it's much less brand focused. If it includes our brand voice and like we're communicating with the customers, we bring it in house.
hmm. What do you like to read? Do you read a lot of business books and whatnot?
Yeah, I have, because I didn't know anything, so I had to like learn quick. I like podcasts a lot, but books, like I prefer to like, I really like biographies or autobiographies, just because like I feel like they give you a really unique look into the life that person lived and their story, which is also why I like podcasts, because they're like this one where it's a lot more story driven, and you can pick out some little nuggets that might apply to you,
Mhm.
But these biographies, like I really liked the Chip Wilson Lululemon biography,
Hmm.
the one about Steve Jobs, Shoe Dog about Nike. But the first book I read that kind of like really created a foundation, kind of like put me into gear to start a business, was the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Oh yeah, I've read that a few times.
Yeah, and it just kind of like, it made it seem doable.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, okay. Like, and so I implemented a lot of those things, day one, of like how to sell your product for a bit cheap or lower price point, but not devalue it. How to like, I used Evernote and all these things he talked about,
Hmm.
and implemented a lot of those strategies and kind of got the business off the ground. So for anyone looking to learn, I think like, there's entrepreneurship classes in school and stuff like that, but like, we're in like a knowledge economy. It's all online. There's so much stuff you can find on YouTube, podcasts, biographies, and just find people you admire and read everything they read,
Hmm.
like, or have been on or listen, and then you'll just learn so much.
Did you read Shoe Dog? I can't. Did you just say Shoe Dog? Oh
Yeah, I
man,
read Shoe Dog.
that was a good one.
Amazing. Like, because you would look at Nike and be like, how could they ever fail, right? But you read that book, you're like, oh my gosh, they were like almost dying for
Hmm.
decades.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the most hectic business ever. And it's just cool to see that like it was quite literally just two guys, mainly one guy, and then his partner Bowerman or whatever, and
Yeah.
like, and they just made it happen. They're like, it wasn't this, what it is today is like just compound of what's happened over many years. And it's cool to see that. And even Lululemon, like you like it, I'd recommend that book. It's the same thing. It's like how
Yeah. I read that too.
billion-dollar business, and it just started with Chip being like, yeah, this could be done better. Like
Hmm.
we can make some stretch pants, because he's obsessed with the different fabrics and that. So it's really cool to see these, like, it's kind of like celebrity in a way. It's like you look at them and like you think like, how could they ever not be celebrity? But you forget that they were probably, well, they were at one point just a regular person, unless maybe they were born into a celebrity family. Then it gets a bit weirder. But like what I've found is that like with businesses, like no matter how big they are, they usually started with like a couple people, you know, like, and just like were nobody or didn't have much experience at all. It's very rare. I think you have like a huge business these days that was handed down, or like that came from like a big wealthy family. Like they generally don't start new things. They just keep doing what they've been doing, you know? So like all the major brands, you know, Apple, Google, all these things have been done by people that just like ground it out.
Yeah, for sure. Would you have any recommendations on podcasts or books other than the ones you talked about for anyone listening?
Anyone listening, I'd make sure you listen to all the episodes of this podcast.
Yeah, Rose podcast.
Rose. I really like How I Built This with Guy Raz, NPR podcast, Tim Ferriss podcast. I really like Pivot podcast, the Prof G show. And then just anything else that piques your interest. I'd say like, don't try and put yourself into a box. Like really just listen to what inspires you, you know, like and I don't listen to every episode of all of these podcasts. I kind of pick and choose. What I do find though is that I do judge a book by its cover. So I'll look at like a Tim Ferriss podcast, be like, oh, I don't know that person, I'm not going to listen. But sometimes I'll find myself at like auto plays and I listen to 10 minutes and like I'm all in on it. And so I would encourage people to like give things that they wouldn't think a chance. You'll learn so much from people that you've never heard of before. And you're like, wow. And then you can dive into everything else they've done. You learn all this stuff. So like try not to be just pick up the stuff, even though you can get started by picking up the podcasts and the people you want to listen to. I think like there's a lot of hidden gems there as well.
Well, that's really cool. So what are you up to otherwise apart from the business? You're a dad now. Do you still get out mountain biking much, or what's life involved outside of Endūr?
Yeah, not as much mountain biking, but a lot of road riding.
Okay.
It's just more accessible, still on the bike. A lot of running. Like this year I've was a big focus on getting my health on track. So like I was an athlete, and then during 3 years of building the business, I kind of got pretty unhealthy, a bit fat. And I was just all in. So this year was kind of like, okay, this is the year I want to have it all. I want to get my health on track. I want to have my business. I knew my kid was coming. It was more like something kind of switched. It's like, I'm turning 30. It was more like my focus on health switched away from performance, which it always had been, to longevity. And once I made that switch, I was able to have a more longer view focus on the impacts of what I was eating or my exercise. And, so this year I've lost nearly 40 pounds.
Wow.
I had,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'm back to fighting weight. I could go back to my career tomorrow. Yeah, and it's crazy, but I shouldn't have got that fat in the first place. So it's kind of it's good, but I did it to myself as well. I gained 40, and it was over 4 years. Or 3 or 4 years. That's not hard to do if you're gaining just a pound a month,
Mm-hmm.
And it just happens. And and that was just a result of not even not being unhealthy. I was always still healthy. I was just eating a bit too much and not exercising enough and just being incredibly stressed, Absolutely. So and it just compounds. So I'd take this year and be like, okay, you need to figure this out. You're going to be a dad. You're going to turn 30. You need to get back to fighting weight. And then I also just feel a lot better being healthy. I feel more confident. I feel I am, I said, I had the longevity lens on when I started this journey, but I've been breaking all my old records and running and cycling and stuff. So like part of me is maybe I still got this, the ego starts to go up, and it's maybe I'll go race. So I did a swim run race this summer, and it was really fun. I ended up winning that just out of nowhere too. So it was cool to kind of have my competitive fire back and just, quote unquote, have it all. So 2020 was the year where COVID gave the opportunity to kind of take a reset, have some time at home, build the family, work on that, and work on my health and work on the business. And so, yeah, just kind of living the dream really now, just, doing everything I love to do and healthy and happy. So yeah, it's good.
Well, that's awesome. I know you're busy running Endūr full time, so won't go too much longer, but any other things you want to talk about that maybe you could leave us with as far as Endūr goes? Any upcoming announcements or news?
Well, actually, yeah, like we're gonna have a crazy Black Friday sale. So
Okay.
make sure you join. Yeah, make sure you join our newsletter online just to get notified as soon as that drops, because things are gonna go pretty nuts. It's the only time of the year we don't really run sales. We'll have products that are going out of stock or being discontinued that go on last chance and go on sale, but we don't do a site-wide sale ever, except for Black Friday. So basically for Black Friday, everything is going to be on sale site-wide up to 50% off. So like just crazy, like the opportunity to get like all of our best-selling stuff at a discount, which never happens.
Okay.
So I'd say for anyone listening, if you want to support me and the business and want socks and like the ultimate gift for the holidays, because like
Check
for
it
those
out
people
here.
you don't know what to buy for, I mean, like I said, it's a unisex product. You just got to know if they're a guy or girl, you know, pretty easy, or whatever. And yeah, Black Friday will be big. So
Check
I
it
think
out.
our sale will be running from the 28th to the 2nd, or maybe 26th to the 2nd. So a bit ahead of Black Friday, but yeah, join our newsletter and check and just keep an eye on that, because that'll be really good opportunity to get your hands on a lot of socks at a good deal. Other than that, we drop new products every month. So there's always something fresh, you know, up to 10 new designs every month. So if you don't see something you like now, again, join our newsletter or just follow us on Instagram at Endūr Apparel to see kind of what's coming up. If you want a fun surprise every month, there's our sock subscription. It's really it's $16 a month, and you get a brand new pair of performance socks with free shipping to your door, with like an inspirational story card that gives you a little bit of like oomph for the month, you know? So like pretty, like it cost you less than going to Starbucks and getting like a coffee and a meal, you know? So like it's a small investment you can make in like some athletic inspiration for the month. But if you want and like surprises each month, join our sock subscription. Other than that, just follow us on social media and stay in touch.
And where can people find you online?
Yeah,
Endūr.com?
so endurapparel.com. So ENDUR, no E, apparel. And if you just Googled Endūr socks, you could find us. We rank all up front there. So you find us on Instagram at Endūr Apparel, Facebook Endūr Apparel, Twitter Endūr Apparel,
Cool.
and online. Free shipping, site wide always. Make it pretty easy to get your socks. So yeah, check us out.
So I guess your family members, do they get socks for Christmas, or how does that work running a sock business?
Yeah, funny enough, like I think like you own a sock business long enough, it gets old. So like you'd think that like I would
Yeah,
just have,
you can't give out
I
your own
even I think I would
product.
always have new socks, but I kind
Yeah.
of have my like trusted socks that are on my rotation. I've been taking newer socks lately because we've been bringing out some new styles and they're like really comfortable and stuff. But generally speaking, I don't have like a ton of new socks all the time, or I'm not gifting socks as much. You know, I like
Yeah.
to give thoughtful gifts. I think that's maybe a little less thoughtful these days, but
Cool.
family members do get socks for other people though. They come to me and be like, hey, I need to buy socks for gifts, and we hook that up. But um, yeah, it's a good gift. It's the ultimate gift.
Perfect. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no worries. Appreciate having me on. It's I know we had to reschedule a couple times, so thanks for working with me on that. And it was great chatting. And yeah, if you ever want to have a round two in the future, I'm always keen.
Would love to. Alrighty. Well, we'll wrap it up.